What's up YouTube? I'm going to run through a quick example of how to calculate embodied carbon calcs. This is something that I put off for a while and then I spent a little bit of time looking into it and I realized it was really simple and I shouldn't have put it off for so long. There's a really good resource here. I'll leave a link in the channel. It's essentially, you can download the PDF for free from the iStruct-E and it tells you in detail like how to calculate embodied carbon and all the modules, but I'm going to summarize a really simple calc that I plan on doing in the exam. So what I'm going to be using as an example is this really basic steel portal frame. Yeah, it's just a portal frame with some bracing, slab on ground and some footings. So yeah, let's get straight into it in terms of what's required to calculate the embodied carbon for this steel portal frame. So I've got 4 steps here. So firstly, we need to identify what the primary members are. Then after that, we calculate their mass in kilograms. Then from that PDF that we download from the iStruct-E website, we choose an appropriate embodied carbon factor. And then finally, we simply just multiply the quantity or the mass by the embodied carbon factor, and that's how we get our total embodied carbon. So let's run through a little example here. So if we look at my footings that I had for my portal frame, they're 2.5 meters squared, 800 thick. So they're 5 cubic meters, I've got 12 of them. So I've got a total volume of 60 meters cubed. We know the concrete density is obviously 2400 kg per meters cubed. So we multiply those two together and we get 144 ton. So one thing about your embodied carbon calcs, if you're looking at reinforced concrete, that embodied carbon factor is just for unreinforced concrete. So we have to go again and do a similar calc for our steel reinforcement in the concrete. So this isn't really a detailed calculation. I've just taken an assumption of the reinforcement rate in the footings of 100 kg per meter cubed. So I multiply that by the volume of all of my footings, which we just multiplied before was 60 cubic meter, and I get a footing rebar mass of 6 ton. So yeah, for the reinforced concrete footings, we've got 144 ton of concrete for the footings, and we've got 6 ton for reinforcement in those footings. So next we're going to go for the slab on ground. It's a 180 thick slab. We work out the total volume of the slab and times it by the density of concrete. I end up with a pretty similar number to my footings. I've got 151 ton of concrete. Then after that, yeah, so I do a similar thing for the reinforcement rate. I've assumed the same as the footings, 100 kg per meter cubed. I end up with 6 ton of steel reinforcement. Now for my steel frame, one thing that I only realized actually when I looked at the embodied carbon factors, and I'll scroll down here later to see where I got them, but we actually have to separate the open section and closed section. As you'll see when you look at the embodied carbon factors, the closed sections aren't as friendly to the environment, so to speak. They have a higher embodied carbon factor, so when you're doing your calcs, yeah, you pretty much need to separate your open sections from your closed sections. So I won't go too much in detail, but for instance, my columns are 250 UB31, so I know they're 31 kilograms per meter. The column length is 7, and I've got 12 of them, so the times those together, and I end up with 2.56 ton for my columns. I get 1.9 ton of steel for my rafters, and half a ton of steel for my CHS struts. So now we've done step 1 and 2. We've got all of our primary members, being the steel frames, the concrete. Yeah, that was literally it, being the footings, the slab on ground, and the steel frame. Then we've worked out their mass. So that's the mass of unreinforced concrete, the steel reinforcement in that concrete, and the total mass of the steel frame. Now we've just got our final step, which is simply to multiply that mass by an embodied carbon factor to get our total embodied carbon. So here is it in a table, and this is pretty much what I intend on doing in the exam. So I've just got a table showing all of my elements here that we just discussed, the mass in ton. It's really important just to make sure that you're consistent with your units across here. The embodied carbon factor, so there's probably a bunch of sources you can get that, but if I scroll down, I got that from this guide here. So I'm on page, what is this, 16 of this PDF. Anyway, you can see here, material, the recommended default value. So I came down here for my concrete. I'm in Australia, so I used a global average. I did find it quite funny how the UK seem to think they're much superior with their embodied carbon calcs compared to the rest of the world. Didn't do any research, I'll just take it at face value. So the recommended default value, it's in kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram. Yeah, so that's the value there. If I split screen, we'll be able to see the footings, so the actual like concrete. There's a 0.163, I grabbed that from here, this value here. Then the rebar, if I come down, reinforcement bars, global 1.77, that's that number. And then I'm just multiplying this by this to get this, and this is in tons as opposed to kilogram. It just makes the numbers a bit more palatable. Then concrete, similar thing, I've got the same factors in my slab, so there's a 0.163, the 1.77, I'm just multiplying those two. And the steel frame, if you come down here, the structural section, so I'm using global again, you'll see that global, the rolled sections 1.66 for the rolled sections, and a bit higher for the closed sections, the 2.59. So I just, as I mentioned, multiply your mass that we calculated by the embodied carbon factor, which we downloaded from that guide, and summed it together, 78 ton. And one thing to note, I'll just put this as an assumption, this is like the production modules A1 to 3. So it doesn't include sort of transport and end of life. It's really just the embodied carbon to produce these elements. If you want to know more in greater detail, download this PDF and read the whole thing. But essentially, if you want to know how to calculate embodied carbon calcs, this is my simple guide. I hope that was helpful. If you disagree with anything, chuck it in the comments. If you liked it, give it a like, and subscribe.